UN warns, and I quote, deeply concerned about LGBTQ equality in the United States. On Tuesday, Victor Madrigal-Borloz, the United Nations independent expert on sexual orientation and gender identity, stated he is, quote, deeply alarmed by the state of LGBTQ plus equality in the US. At a press briefing, he said, and I quote, I am deeply alarmed by a widespread, profoundly negative riptide created by deliberate actions to roll back the human rights of LGBT people at the state level. The evidence shows that, without exception, these actions rely on prejudice and stigmatizing views of LGBT persons, in particular transgender children and youth, and seek to leverage their lives as props for political profit, end quote. Madrigal-Borloz also notes that LGBTQ people of color are particularly at risk in the United States, facing inequality in relation to health, education, employment, and housing, as well as being disproportionately impacted by violence. No surprises there. I mean, the UN report is what we have lived as reality in the United States for some time now, especially in the last couple of years. The transgender youth bans, any kind of, any allegations of quote unquote grooming, all those, it's the old stuff being made new again. Around the time that I was born, Anita Bryant was going on a crusade saving the children. And that was the 70s campaign based on the premise that since gay people would recruit children to be gay, and to our history, the historic parallels are pretty obvious. The whole grooming talk about trans youth and stuff is just literally
your point makes me wonder who's going to volunteer tonight to bake the pie. Somebody needs to do that. Did it surprise anybody that the UN comes out and says this about America?
It did not surprise me, but it's so interesting. The UN sits in New York, which is a gay haven in many ways, and the disconnect is such that these leaders are discussing these issues within the confines of these walls and are sometimes out of touch that the reality it's so harsh for transgender youth, for queer youth. And so I love that, we're getting the data out, because maybe that triggers something in their brain to see these are real lives that are being lost. These are real people. But within New York, you can sort of lose sight that parts of the world are very dangerous, are very tragic.
Unfortunately, given the view of conservative politicians and conservative people at large towards the UN, this report will get straight.
Well, and also interesting, the United Nations is a political organization after all. And rarely do you see political organizations make absolutist statement. In this statement from the United Nations, they used the phrase, without exception, this is why this is happening. They minced no words at all. They left no door open to say, well, maybe, no, without exception.
I think they're trying to make a statement for the American people. Like, this is what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I think it even goes beyond that. They're making a statement to the world that this is a problem. And if we've been talking about parallels since the beginning of this, this show, if you think about where we were at the onset of the prior administration and where we are now, and all the things that have happened since, the parallels continue to occur, and history is in fact repeating itself. We want to talk about a civil war and whether or not that might be realistic. What happened on January 6th?
Yeah, exactly right.
Great point.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.